Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you folks out there. This is another episode of the SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast. This is Train Talk from Milepost 141, and I'm George Bogatuk.
Tom Austin.
And we're coming to you live from the SoundTraxx offices. Well, not live, I guess, recorded.
Yeah.
Whatever. Close enough for government work.
Yes.
Anyway, we're recording this in mid-March, so it's been really nice. We got our big snowstorm come through. It's been warmed up really nice. I've got cabin fever. I need to get outside.
It's been nice. It's been very nice. The sun's shining again today, and it's not as warm as it has been, but it's still very comfortable.
Yeah, and this coming weekend, we're supposed to hit like 65 all weekend. I'm like, I cannot wait. Looking forward to it.
Yep, get the house out a little bit, get some of the projects out I want to get going, and get to painting. So,
that's it.
Yeah.
I got stuff coming up this first weekend, but the following weekend I'm going to put the layout up and operate because
sounds good.
That op session a few weeks ago really got me going. I want to operate trains now.
Yeah, I guess that would get the juices going. Yeah,
it would get the juices going.
I would love it myself. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see if we can coordinate and get you over.
Yep.
Get some ops out of your system.
Bring maybe some CNEI GP15s or something, or maybe a switcher.
There you go. Well, that kind of rolls us into projects. You actually have something in front of you here.
Yeah, it's not quite done. I mean, it didn't go as, the lettering on it is great, but it does take a little bit of time for the Solva set to do its thing, and it's looking good. But that's the Walthers NW2. Excellent model by Walthers. Beautifully done. Dry system. And then we talked about it in our last podcast about compatibility. And I left the shell like this because, again, it's not done yet. It's got handrails and other stuff that will actually be that Aztec gold, or Aspen gold, rather.
Okay.
Aspen gold paint. But anyway, I'll take that off. And this is the standard Walthers Next 18 board. And I left this. This is the Tsunami2. It's not a Blunami this time because we mentioned that a few podcasts ago. We're going to do a few. I had some people write in about, well, this is a Tsunami2 one right here. But anyway, here's your compatible Walthers board. Plugs right in.
Yep.
Our board works good. It'll have a front rear light, of course. It'll have truck lights when I'm done with it. And then there's your scale sound system speaker, and it will have a beacon up here on top. It's drilled out, and it will go through the cab and go down.
Oh, nice.
I made a little bracket for it.
Oh, nice.
The beacon's it's a Details West beacon, but anyway, it's drilled out. But they come with 3 different hoods, so you get the Phase 1, I think, Phase 3 and Phase 4.
Oh, wow.
I think. So it's like a super on deck. So kudos and shout out to Walthers for an excellent model, and I'm very happy with it. And like I said, we've got the SoundTraxx Next 18 in it, scale sound systems, custom paint. This was painted with Mr. Hobby primers, which they call Surfacer 1500.
Okay.
And white, of course, and then white true color paint over it. And then the same thing with the metal frame. The one thing I did differently on this one is you take the engine completely apart, wash the frame with soap and water, let it air dry, spray it with Mr. Hobby metal primer, which I don't know what it does, some magic, but it makes the paint stick. And then you put your primer, your white primer on it, and then your finish coat. You'll notice the pilots on it. These are painted with Tamiya. They're taped off, so you paint the Aspen gold first.
Okay.
Then tape it off with Tamiya masking tape. Then paint your black, and then peel it off for your barricade stripes, which is what it had in the actual engine. And this engine worked the coal mines in Southern Illinois for some time until the mine, I think Ziegler 4 closed in 1980, I believe. And then the last time I saw this engine was sitting in Cora, Illinois, down by Rockwood on the Mississippi River. It's a river transfer station. They don't use it anymore. At least they didn't. I don't think they use it now at all. Probably it's been 20 years since I've seen it.
Oh,
but anyway, it was sitting there where it was probably dumping coal trains at one time before they quit using it. Now they just use road power down there. But anyway, there she is, and we can hear what she sounds like because it's got that. I'm
going to get this Santa Fe out of the way here.
You guys, it's got that, as George said, it's got that tractor sound. It's got now the horn's not right. It's the Mopec air horn, but I can't help it.
Yeah, of course you can't.
But I want you to hear that SoundTraxx horn,
Yeah. Yep. But that's the 12-cylinder 567 that lives in our EMD2.
Right.
And like we talked about in the last podcast, how to select the prime mover. You go in and find the locomotive model that you're working on, and then you can go in and find the list of prime movers that would be associated with that model.
CV123 for your prime mover on all your SoundTraxx.
Yep.
We'll get her to go forward so you can hear it rev up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be nice once you get some of those, get them some hoppers in front and behind it.
Yeah.
And, one thing I didn't notice until just now, looks like you got Sargent couplers on it.
Yeah, that's just to throw some couplers on there. That's not what I use. I use KD158s.
Okay.
That's just on there. These were given to me by somebody. I can't remember who it was, but I use them for photos only.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're great. I could never build them properly myself.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get them. I could get them to couple, but I couldn't get them in a couple. So I quit. But it was something I was doing. It wasn't the product. But anyway, they're on there for a visual.
Yeah, I just happened to notice that they were on there. But
I think it's Nathan Obermeyer, a friend from the Wolfpack Society, that gave these to me.
Yeah.
They come with a car. I think I bought from him.
Yeah. The Sargent couplers, they're nice. They look great, and they're of course scale. But they're difficult to work with because I looked at them as well, and that was about the same time KD came out with their 158. So I decided to stick with the ones that are pretty universal.
Yeah.
And the 158s work with the 5s. They work with the 158s, the scales. They work with any of this stuff.
And they work with the clone couplers that come on the factory engines that we get now, cars that come already ready to go. A lot of them, unfortunately, do come with 158s. But like George said, they also they work with anything out there that's KD or KD clone-esque.
Yeah.
And these are just, like I said, these are great for photos, like I said, and they're great for people. I'm not knocking them. I think they're fantastic. And if I could have ever figured out how to build them right, I probably would have kept them. But I ended up going back to 158s. But these are just some that I got from Nathan, I think.
Yeah, it could be. My experience with the Sargents was I went over to a friend who was doing them all on his HON3 stuff.
Yeah.
And oh man, was it tough! And every time we'd get in there with the magnet to lift the pin, so to speak, the car would lift up with it. It was kind of like, well, that kind of defeat the purpose of it. But I think those narrow gauge cars were a little light. But then, even still, when they were light, they were just hard to uncouple, like you said. So
right, I'll just move.
Not like I said, not knocking it or nothing.
I muted it, so it's
well, you got to make sure you stay on camera though.
Yeah, I've just muted it.
Go way off camera.
Move it back there out of the way so we can get to yours. But anyway, that's where it will have handrails on it. The handrails will be Aspen gold. It has handrails along the top of the long hood.
Those are gold as well?
Yes.
Okay.
They're done. All that's done. It's just I'm waiting for that Solva set to get it
to finish working.
It's magic. But it'll sound good pushing cars back and forth at the mine.
Yeah, it will. You start enabling that dynamic digital exhaust.
Yep.
Oh man, that's going to be a killer model.
Yeah.
Nice, I like it.
Thank you.
And that makes me want to get my. I got other SW1200 sitting there in the works. I'm ready to paint it Ashidra and Northern.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Because that'll be a nice interchange for the Arkansas side of my Missouri Pacific Railroad.
Yeah, I've did that like last night with it back and forth, just running it back and forth, and it's like, man, that thing sounds good. So
yeah, it does.
I'm pretty happy with it. Turned out good. And again, like I said, thank you, Walthers, for such a very nice model. Very easy to work with, very easy to disassemble, put back together. And for custom painters that like to paint stuff like that, it's nice to have a manufacturer still offer undecorated like that. And thank you, Eric and Bob and all you guys up there at Walthers for great
and
model.
it's also very compatible with SoundTraxx.
Very compatible. I mean, let's drop it, plug and play. And like I said, the beacon will go right down in there, and then those pads, those little solder pads right on the back of the board there, they'll solder right there.
Yep.
And that's normally like when they have the SP, they'd have done another plug there, but I'm just going to use those solder pads and drop the little wire right to it.
And that'll be nice and easy.
Yep.
Oh, now you've done it.
Now I've started back up.
Just hit mute again. You'll be fine. There you go. So kind of along those lines, that's a great segue to get into my project over here. Is compatibility. And this is one, I know it's not Missouri Pacific. Don't worry, we'll get back to that next time.
Right, it's beautiful though.
I got roped into this by a friend, and I'll say it was a project that I was actually interested to try out. This is the Rapido GP38s. Now, as many of you guys have heard us talk about the incompatibility with a lot of the stuff that's out there that's now being factory done. You can't plug in our decoder and access all of the lights.
Right.
And so I have another one that's my personal engine. It's the Southern Railway with the high hood because of the Missouri Pacific being that White River route.
Right.
You had the SMU and the UMS, which
Correct.
is Southern Missouri Pacific, Union Pacific trains, and the Union Pacific, Missouri Pacific Southern trains.
Right.
So there was a lot of UP and Southern Railway run through. So I've got 3 Southern Railway tuxedos at home,
Right.
2 SD40s, and then of course the Jeep 38. When I popped it open and realized the incompatibilities, it was a little frustrating, so it kind of got put on the shelf. But I got contracted by a friend to do this one, and who caught me in a moment of weakness, I'll say.
Right.
Not that I'm unhappy to do it. I was glad to do it, but this ended up being a lot easier to convert than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. So we've got some pictures we'll overlay on the video side here. But what I did is I had to take out their factory motherboard, which I call a uniboard.
Right.
And it's a board that basically runs from right behind the cab all the way to the end of the long hood. And what it does is it has all the LEDs for everything, most everything built onto the motherboard. So your headlight and your number boards were on this uniboard back here that were then supposed to be piped through light pipes to bend a 90-degree angle and then shine out the front of the model.
Right.
And by factory, they were very dim.
Right.
And then you had the same thing on the back. You have the number boards and you have the class lights. And these actually have the walkway courtesy lights on the front and the rear of the model.
Right.
And so I was looking at it and I had the aha moment. And yes, I had to replace 7 LEDs. But it really isn't as difficult as I thought it would be, because when you pull the cab out, the 3 light pipes are literally right there at the back. So what I did is I just drilled a little indention into them with a small drill, stuck my LED in there, and then cleared it with or covered it with microscale crystal clear.
Right.
And then let that dry. And that was for the headlight and the 2 number boards.
Yeah,
so that was
much
3
brighter, I
LEDs.
bet.
Oh, and it's much brighter now. So, and this was a Blunami. But getting back to, okay, I'm going to screen record here in 3, 2, 1. And for those of you listening, that's so we can make sure the screen record shows the same thing.
Right.
But we turn on the headlight and it's nice and bright. And the backlights, I did the same thing. So I used 3 for the front and basically 4 for the rear. The rear headlight, the 2 class lights, and then the walkway courtesy lights. And so on this model here, the other thing is there's also and I don't have it visible at this angle, so I'll show you an insert camera, but there's also the control stand light.
Okay.
And that that's on, that turns on. I still have that. So I didn't run out of lights.
Right.
They were hidden behind all these other things.
Right.
And one of the really cool things, and I'll show you this right here. Now we got the beacon on the front. So you got the front class lights are clear, the rear class lights are clear. And this model only came with clear, by the way. When we were talking about it before I started the project, we were talking about the red, green, and white. They only had clear on this one, which is good because in this particular era that this model was delivered,
That's correct.
It is correct.
For extra.
Yep. So
that beacon looks great.
And that beacon looks fantastic. And the cool thing is, this is, for those of you guys out there who know, Rapido offered their, what they called Rapido bits, where you could buy this rotating rotary beacon as a kit, and the wires would come down to a circuit board, and then the circuit board would just take power in.
Right.
Well, I was a little nervous wondering how this was done. Well, on this particular model, that circuit board actually lives in the top of the cab.
Yeah.
So under the bottom of the cab, there's actually 5 spring-loaded finger pins, 2 for V+, and then you have one for the rotary beacon, you have one for the cab lights, and then one for the ground or the truck lights. And this model has all of those lights lit up. So the control for the rotary beacon was built into the top of the cab. And what I did was, for the number board, I actually wired those in together with the control stand light, so that way, when you're in the locomotive, typically the lead unit, that's where you're running it from, right?
Right.
That would be the locomotive of record.
Right.
So that would be where you're controlling from the control stand.
Right. Control stand be lit, number boards be lit, class lights, etc.
So everything there, it matches up.
Wow, that looks
and
great.
we'll unmute this. Now, I did reuse the Rapido speakers. They came in an enclosure, but they were sitting there. And what they did was they laid them in their box, and then they put them up on the underside of that uniboard.
Right.
And those spring-loaded pins on the speaker would touch the locations on the underside of the circuit board, and that's how they wired the speaker in.
Right, and they were in parallel when you got them.
And they were in parallel.
Yeah.
But when I take that uniboard out, there's essentially two loose speakers in an enclosure that's separate from the uniboard.
Right.
So what I did was I basically just dropped some glue in there to hold them in place.
Right.
And then wired them because the speakers were kind of back to back.
Right.
I jumpered this side or whatever it is, and then wired the wires to the other side, so that way the two wires from the decoder go to the two terminals, and then because these other terminals are wired together, that creates the series.
Yeah.
So when you're wiring in series, you want to make sure to pay attention to the polarity of the speaker, because what can happen if you wire them in series but they're opposite polarity, what happens is when one speaker is starting to move up, the other's moving down, which essentially negates the whole point of the baffle.
Right.
So you want to make sure that when they're both moving up and down together, so that's where polarity is going to be very important.
Right.
But this model is I actually was really impressed with it. It got me excited. Now I got so many projects I want to do.
I know.
You got me wanting to do my ADN NSW 1200. Now I want to do my Southern Railway, because there's also another thing Southern Railway did that not a lot of people realize.
What's that?
Well, we'll have to wait and see when I get it done, because I don't want to disclose it too soon.
I'm glad I don't know this. I'll be blurting it out.
But it has to do with lights.
Okay.
So you know if it's me, it has to do with lights.
Okay, yeah. I think I got an idea, but I'll keep quiet.
Yeah, there we go. But anyway, this actually turned out to be a whole lot easier than I expected it to be, because I've had some friends of ours that have gone in and they've cut the boards off to preserve the LEDs, and then scraped the traces, and then wired it to a P&P decoder with resistors. And then I've seen other people take it all out, and then they just have to replace the resistors. Like we had our friend Chris Brown on the show here a while back, and he's got a YouTube channel where he does these, and he does a whole lot more work because he goes in and mills out some of the freight with the weights. Now, to his credit, he puts 3 cube speakers in there.
Right.
And they're wired in series.
Right.
And they sound fantastic. This was just using the 2 speakers that came with it.
Sounds great too.
And so I'm not complaining on it too much. So overall, I think it finished pretty good. So we can go ahead and start to move it forward. There's no momentum or anything in this. Like I said, this is for a friend. I'm going to let him do all of it. So even if you're looking at the screenshot of my control of the locomotive, you'll notice that, I didn't even go in and label the lights, because there's nothing going to be retained here, because I'm never going to see this model again, probably once I get it away.
And with it being a Blunami, he'll have an easy time doing it himself. He'd do it in 5 minutes or less.
Right. But model runs pretty smooth. And what I want to do is run it at reverse at speed step 1. So it's nice and smooth there. And then we have what's called half speed and momentum override, aka switching mode. And what it does is I can take that and run it at basically speed step 1/2. And look at that. That's nice and smooth operation right there.
Yeah, it's great.
And all the lights look good. The beacon looks good. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out.
I am too. That's
now
beautiful.
I almost hate having to send it off now.
I know. That's something about that blue bonnet. That's just a classic paint scheme.
Yeah.
Rapido did a great job on that.
Yeah.
The exterior, they need to make the inside of it, compatible.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. They just have to work on their interior circuit board design to make sure that everything is compatible, because I hear from it, I'm sure you hear a lot too, that people are frustrated with the fact that they just bought a model off the shelf, and what you mean I can't just plug in a decoder?
Right.
And that's frustrating.
Yeah,
so I totally understand.
They don't like it either if I suggest to them that take the motherboard out and put a buddy board in it.
Yeah.
Or something like that to put a 21 pin, because that's really a great way to retrofit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they express disappointment at that.
Yep. So, well, yeah, and I totally understand, and I'm not afraid of popping a model open and tearing it open and fixing it. But
not everybody wants.
But not everybody wants to do that, so it's a little frustrating. So, best thing I can say is the Rapido, the models look great, but you got to work on that compatibility. So,
yep, I agree.
So, but anyway, so with that, that's pretty much everything we've got as far as projects are concerned. And so, when it comes to operation, I just got a phone call today, as a matter of fact, from a regular viewer, a regular user, regular caller, whatever you want to call it. I know I've guided him with a regular customer. I've guided him over several installs. He buys from our retailers on a regular basis. He's got 3 decoders en route right now, but he got done installing one yesterday, this morning, whatever it was. And he called me up and he got the headlight to work, but he couldn't get the other light to work. And he said, well, it's wired to the green wire. Is that F6 or is it something else? And so my answer was something else.
Yeah.
And the only reason I bring that up was because when I told him that the green wire is turned on with button 24, there was that inevitable pause.
Right, like, huh?
Like, well, how do I do that? And he's looking at this, the traditional power cab. And when you see this thing, it's not immediately intuitive as far as how to access the higher functions. And so, like when we're talking about the Blunami here, and I'm still screen recording so you can see it here, all my functions are labeled, everything's laid out. Mm-hmm. And so here I don't care what function button I'm pushing, I just push the effect that I want to happen. So, like for example, the straight to idle is function 19.
Right.
Well, I just push straight to idle on here and it happens. Or head end power, not that the Jeep 38 had head end power, but if I wanted to do that, it's function 16. But again, how do you access it here? And I think that brings up a very important thing. And I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen record now. It brings up a very important thing because the DCC system is your gateway. If you're using Tsunami2, if you're using Blunami, the app can of course be your gateway as well, but this is the gateway to turn your desire. What do I want my locomotive to do? This is the gateway to turn your desire into a DCC command. And so it's very important that you understand how to use your system of choice, whether it be, we have NCE here, power cabs, but if you have Digitrax, CVP products, they're easy DCC command.
Right. Lens
system or whatever's out there. You really want to have an understanding of how to use this. And I will be the first to tell you, some of the manuals for some of these companies are not the easiest thing to do. And I was talking about the ops session that I was at, and I don't use Digitrax that often, but one of the boosters failed. And so I was trying to do a reset, but I couldn't remember how to do an off switch because it's been years. Right. So I'm trying to read through the manuals, and I have no clue what's going on. And it was frustrating. And, of course, everybody's sitting around waiting. And, here's the digital guy, and he's having problems. So I'm sure everybody got a little nervous. I'm like, look, I don't use Digitrax that often.
Yeah, it's the wrong tracks. It's Digitrax, not SoundTraxx.
Yeah, there you go. We spell and pronounce our names differently.
Yes.
But anyway, we... ultimately, one of the guys that was floating around walked in, had a new system, plugged it in, powered it right up, everything worked.
Right.
And I haven't heard the result of whether the system actually failed or whether there was something in there that somebody may have accidentally done. I don't know what happened, so I'm not trying to throw Digitrax under the bus. But what I was trying to do was throw an op switch, and I couldn't remember how to throw an op switch.
Right.
So that's why I was going through the manual, because I was going to do a system reset.
Right.
And
which is a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And to know how to do, especially Digitrax user, it is a great thing to do because you need to clear that out of there every so often.
Correct. So for me, it was frustrating the fact that I couldn't help. Now, I will tell you this particular layout was an HON3, so I had my Blunami equipped K27 that we've taken to train shows.
So you were good.
I was running trains. I didn't
power,
have a problem.
You had the phone. You're good to go.
I had the phone. As long as I had power, I was good to go. But anyway, my point of all of it is that if you have a system at home, whatever it is, make sure you understand how to use this.
Right.
Because programming CVs and doing stuff like that, I know you and I coach people a lot, especially with the systems we're familiar with, because we know what buttons to push. I mean, like NCE, I can usually tell people which buttons to push.
Right.
And this particular call today, he didn't know how to access function 24. So I had to teach him how to use the system. And so what my point of all of it is that this is being your gateway. Get yourself familiar with it. Mm-hmm. If you're afraid you're going to do something that you don't like, take your engines off the track,
Yep.
So you're not programming anything, you're not doing anything, and just start running commands, because this is still sending DCC commands right now. There's nothing on the track, so you don't have to worry about it. So this is where you can learn how to push the buttons and read the manual with it. But I will tell you that at SoundTraxx, we understand this is the gateway, and you can't enjoy our decoders fully unless you know how to use the system.
That's right.
Of course, Blunami is its own character or its own category, but so we've got a video out there on our YouTube channel, SoundTraxx webinar number 9. If you go to youtube.com and search SoundTraxx webinar 9, you'll see a video. And this is a video that we did a few years back, long before the world ended in 2020. But what I did is I took a MRC system, a Digitrax system, and an NCE system, and showed you the basics of how to use the throttles.
Right.
And so that way, whichever system of those are the 3 most popular USA-based companies.
Right.
I'm sure there's others out there, and I'm not trying to knock them. I just didn't necessarily have access to them.
The big 3.
The big 3. So go in, and if you're not familiar with how to do that, watch watch that video. Read your manual again with the new knowledge, and suddenly you may have that that aha moment.
Right.
Because once you know how to use your system, you certainly have control over it. And obviously, we're doing this for fun, right? And so we don't want to be frustrated. We don't want to be scared. We don't want to be limited by how to control your trains.
Right.
And if you live in that constant fear of breaking something or changing something inadvertently or whatever the case is, it kind of takes a little of the fun away, in my opinion.
It does. I mean, to tell folks that buy the Ather and Genesis engines, it's so much easier when you call in and ask, hey, how do I get my engines to the automatic brake release? I want to program my brakes. Well, I can tell you CV3116, CV32 is 1. Then you go to CV1.403 and give that a value of 0 to turn that brake off. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know how to access that here, I can't really help you other than just telling you what the numbers are.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And then again, we're not necessarily familiar with every system out there. We use NCE here most of the time. I know you have your own personal experience with the Digitrax system. Right. But MRC is one we have, but it's not one we use regularly.
Right.
So.
We use this one a lot, and I became very familiar with this. And it is, once you're acquainted with the throttle, it's very intuitive, but you got to know what the option button is, and you got to know the program escape or the shift zero thing, and it's all in the manual. I will say NCE's got a manual that's right up front there, and even on their online manual, you can go to the online manual if you want to use the computer and go right to it.
So be sure to check that out. Experiment, play with your system, make sure you understand it. One of the other things I will conclude with is that when you're playing with our decoders, you cannot break the decoder by changing CV values. You may get some undesired behavior. But you didn't break it. Right. So say, for example, this is one of the things I've done over the years is I quit giving CV29 values. We were talking about this today. Yeah. Because CV29 actually has 5 of the major basic configurations of the decoder and the locomotive and how you want them to run. And if I inadvertently think that, you must be automatically using the 4-digit long address, or if I assume you're using custom speed tables or something like that, I could easily give you a value that may be inaccurate, right, or doesn't match your model. And so, say for example, if customer calls up and says, I want to enable, I don't remember what it is. Let's say they want to enable alternate speed tables, and I assume that they're using the 4-digit address, so I tell them set CV29 to 50. Right. And they're like, okay. I just lost control of my decoder. What happened? Right. Well, you lost control because you didn't tell me you were using the short address. Right. And that's exactly why I don't tell that, because now if customer loses control of his decoder while he's sitting there programming, then I got to go back and undo the stuff. And so that's why I kind of force everybody in that way. But I got an undesired behavior. I didn't break the decoder. Right. Now it's working on a long address, which NCE is one of the few, if not the only one that I know of that will talk to address 0003, which is digitally written different in the ones and zeros than address 3. Right. So if I have address 3 versus address 0003, I can actually have 2 locomotives with that on my track. And so if I enable the long address before I set it, it goes to address 0003, which means some systems absolutely won't talk to it. So you have to go to the programming track. Right.
Right, and then that's key because that's one of the things I did learn about it. It will recognize those placeholders, whereas Digitrax should just be 3.
Right. Everything below 127 or 127 and below, I should say, is automatically a short address or 2-digit, and everything 128 and above is considered a long or 4-digit address or extended address, if you want to use the proper term. So those are some of the things, but like I said, you can't break the decoder. You can change the values. You can do whatever you want. And in some cases, like for example on our diesel decoders, since that's what we're showing off here, you've got 44 different air horns to choose from.
Right.
Well, if you accidentally, let's say I fat finger, I mean, I kind of represent that remark, but let's say I accidentally fat fingers a whistle number 47.
Right.
Well, to be fair, some decoders may say, well, there's no data, and then it can't do anything until it gets the data.
Right.
But our decoder is like, nope, there's no data there. That's not a choice. And so what it'll do is it'll default back to the default horn of 0.
Yeah.
So that way you can't break the decoder.
Right.
But some of these other brands, if you're looking for whistle 46 that doesn't exist or horn 46 that doesn't exist, it puts it into this death loop of looking for data that doesn't exist. So that's another way that you can know and work with confidence with SoundTraxx decoders.
Right.
So experiment with your system, get familiar with the buttons, learn what they do and how they work. It can be a little intimidating because there's a lot of them on there. But the good news is if you look at it and start learning the system explicitly, you'll find out, and especially in the case of NCE, there's a lot of duplication.
Right.
You know, like for example, there's a horn button, but then there's also a 2 key.
Yeah.
There's a bell button, but then there's also a 1 key.
Right. There's a
headlight and also a 0 key.
Right.
And both of them do the same thing.
Right.
But they pulled those out to give you an access to it.
Right.
Recall button allows you to cycle through multiple throttles.
Right.
Whereas Digitrax, like if you have the DT 400, 500, or even the new 602s, you have 2 knobs, and whichever one you turn is how you recall between 2 different throttles. So it's getting to know the system. The systems are, I mean, they're fairly simple, quite frankly, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do with them. So be sure to learn your system, and in some cases, the limitations of your system. I'm sure you've talked to customers that buy that Bachmann Easy Command, trying to change a CV, and you're like, yeah, that ain't happening.
Right, you can't do it.
You can't do it. You can change the address, but that's about it.
Or if you've got a Zephyr, Digitrax, and you don't have a throttle, you can't access some of the index CVs.
On the 50. The Zephyr 50. The 51,
newer one you can.
The 51 and the 52, I believe they did add that.
Right. If you've got a 50, though, we've run into that. And then, like yesterday, I had a guy call in, and he couldn't get his lights to work. And like what George is alluding to, back to CV29, what had happened was he had it set for 14 speed steps. Once he set it to 28, 128, we got it set correctly, the lights came on.
Yep,
exactly. We went through everything else. We troubleshot 49 and 50, 57 and 58. Everything was good there. So I said, okay, let's check CV29. Let's check and see what speed step you got her on. And he told me the number. I think it was 32.
32, yeah.
And I said, oh, you got 14 speed steps. I said, change it to 34. He changed it to 34. Lights came on.
Yep, there you go. So don't be afraid to learn your system. Take your time. Like I said, if you're really worried about it, take your system off. Or worst case, just unplug the track. If you're like, have 15 locomotives off on the track and you don't want to do it, just unplug the track and experiment with the throttle and get yourself familiar with it, and go from there.
Yep,
so,
I agree.
Well, that's pretty much everything we've got planned for this week. That thing's looking great. I can't wait to see it finished.
Yeah, I will bring it back when it's finished, maybe with another switcher. The Jinx Blue one's going to be a lot easier to paint. This one took a little more time. Like I said earlier, the lettering on it, that was done by Precision Design, Billy Cows for the Win. Shout out to Bill Berlinger. Great job on the decals, Bill, as usual.
Yep. So, the cool thing is that it actually shows you're making progress.
Yeah,
keep coming in empty-handed.
Well, you want your paint. I like to paint with like 50 degrees and above in the garage is okay.
Yeah,
I'm good. I just want it. I don't like painting in 30-degree weather. I'm getting too old for that.
I'm giving you a hard time.
Yeah, I know.
It's always fun.
I'm just saying. It's when you get to 58, man. 50 degrees is okay, but 30 degrees, your bones start popping and everything. You're sitting out there like, guys out there know what it's like. It's woo.
Man, there's times I've heard you get up, feel like I'm watching a Rice Krispies commercial.
Yeah, that's what I sound like, a bowl of Rice Krispies when you pour milk in it when I get up. It's just like snap, crackle, pop.
There you go. Well, anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and close on that note then, now that we've officially upset everybody.
Yes.
We're doing this all in good fun. We're just having fun.
Yeah, we are. Oh yeah, I do sound like that. I mean,
Well, I figure at some
that?
point, yeah, I did. I figure at some point I will, playing hockey. I'm sure
you will.
I've got a destiny date with a replacement hips and knees and everything coming.
I know when we're going to get rain because this arm hurts and my left knee hurts and all that. I know when it's going to rain. I'm like a weather vane.
There you go. Well, let's close this out. This has been the SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast, the Train Talk from Outpost 141. This is Tom. I'm George. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Leave us a comment below if you liked it, and be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out some of the other videos like we've talked about on our YouTube channel where you can learn a lot about the SoundTraxx products. Guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye.